The sun had just slipped behind the curved, tiled rooftops of ancient Kyoto, the city, once lively and bright with the bustling of market traders and the laughter of children, was now cloaked in a soft amber hue. Shadows stretched long across the earth, and the sky bloomed gently into pale pinks, deep blues, and the tender gold of twilight. The lanterns outside doorways began to glow, one by one, flickering like grounded stars in a quiet neighborhood near the edge of the city, where moss gathered around stone lanterns and bamboo rustled gently in the breeze. There stood a modest wooden house. It was not grand or imposing. It had no ornate gates or wide porches, but it held something far more valuable, a quiet kind of peace. Within its walls lived a man named Kyoto, a calligrapher of quiet renown. He was neither rich nor famous, but those who received his writings often said they could feel a certain softness in the ink as if the brush had carried not just words, but emotion. Tonight, as the last orange light faded into dusk, Kyoto lit a single oil lamp in his studio. The room was small, lined with scrolls and brushes, bowls of ink, and silk cloths for cleaning. A low writing table sat near a paper screen window, and a thin trail of incense rose from a bronze holder shaped like a crane. He sat in seiza, legs folded beneath him, and took a slow breath. The night air was cool. Crickets began their gentle song outside. From somewhere in the distance came the faint sound of a temple bell, deep, round, and low. It marked the hour. When Kyoto hushed itself to sleep, the people would draw their screens, place out their bedding, and slip into dreams. But for Kyoto, this was the beginning. He reached for his inkstones, smooth black and heavy, and poured a small amount of warm water into its shallow well. Then he picked up the ink stick and began to grind it slowly in circles. The movement was patient, rhythmic. A whispering sound rose from the stone's surface, subtle as wind brushing silk. The scent of the Inca mix of soot and pine resin rose with the steam. Each circle of grinding was like the turning of thought into silence. The more he moved, the more his breath softened. His hands, practiced over many years, knew the weight and balance of the task. This was not the hurried ink of a scribe or the decorative flourishes of a merchant's scroll. In motion, this was presence. When the ink reached the right depth of darkness, rich and glossy, like polished obsidian, he dipped his favorite brush into the well. The bristles, soft but precise, soaked up the ink with a satisfying ease. The handle had been carved from a branch of cherry wood, smoothed over the years by his own fingers. It was a gift from his teacher, given long ago on the day he completed his first full scroll. Before he wrote, he looked at the blank paper. Before him a long piece of washi stretched across the table. It was ivory white, slightly textured, and completely still. To many, it would have looked empty. But to Kyoto, it was filled with possibility. He did not rush. He waited for the moment when breath, heart, and hand aligned. Then, slowly, he began. The first stroke moved like the wind, confident and alive. It curved softly, ending with a lift that echoed the sweep of a crane's wing. The character he formed was not chosen for its meaning, but for its feeling. It was the word for flow, but that was only the beginning. More followed, each character unfolding from the one before it, like petals from a blossom. He wrote of rivers and pine trees, of snow falling in silence, and distant mountains. He wrote the word for moon in such a way that it shimmered, even in ink. There was no one watching, no client awaiting the scroll. This was not a commission. It was not a performance. It was a conversation with the night. Time disappeared. The wind shifted. The ink's scent deepened. Brush and letting it hover in space, listening for the next stroke, not with ears, but with something deeper. There was no music, no sound but breath and bristle, and the gentle creak of the floorboards beneath him. It was the music of focus as he wrote. Memories surfaced like mist rising from a hot spring. He remembered his old teacher's voice, calm and dry, like parchment. To write is to listen, the teacher once said, to the space within. He remembered the day his mother gave him his first writing kit. He had been no older than 10. The ink had stained his fingers, and he had wept when he accidentally ruined the paper. She had smiled and said, "Then you have already begun. Ink that stains is ink that stays." He remembered autumns spent practicing characters in the temple garden, where leaves fell onto his scrolls and monks moved quietly among the stones. In each of those moments, he had felt this same quietness, and so he wrote, not to preserve those memories, but to become them, character after character. He moved like drifting snow. He did not chase perfection. He honored imperfection, the slight tremble in a line, the dot that landed just off centaur. These were not flaws, they were footprints, evidence that a soul had passed here. Outside, the moon had risen high above the tiled rooftops, casting silver blue light across the city. The wind was cooler now, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Somewhere far away, a fox barked once, then vanished into silence. Kyoto laid down his brush. He had written enough, not because the scroll was full, but because the moment was complete. He looked at the characters he had written, letting his eyes move slowly across the paper. Some were bold, others quiet. Together, they flowed like a stream. They were not meant to be admired or displayed. They were meant to be lived. He stood and stretched his legs, moving with the slow grace of someone who lived close to the ground. He walked to the side of the room where his teapot waited, still warm on a bed of coals. He poured roasted barley, tea into a small clay cup, watching the steam curl upward like calligraphy itself. He brought the cup to his lips. The flavor was gentle, earthy, and familiar. The warmth settled in his chest. As he sipped, he looked out through the paper screen. The garden beyond was bathed in moonlight. The stone lanterns looked like ancient sentinels. The pond reflected the sky with perfect stillness, stirred near the surface, then vanished into shadow. In that moment, he felt no urgency, no unfinished task, no longing, only quiet, only the brush, only the night. He rolled up the scroll and tied it with a strip of silk. It would not be sold. It would not be shown. It would rest in a small wooden box, among other scrolls, written on other nights. They were not records of his life. They were his life. He extinguished the candle with a pinch of his fingers. Darkness folded around him like a blanket. He lay down on his futon, letting his head rest upon the pillow filled with buckwheat husks. The scent of ink lingered on his hands. His eyes closed gently, and in the silence, as the world outside drifted deeper into slumber, drifted like a brushstroke at the end of its path, into stillness, into sleep, into the way of the brush.